Hello, gunfighters, and welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting and gun-related stuff the right way with God at the center. Gonna try something a little bit different. You guys are probably familiar if you've listened for any length of time. The Better Know a Cartridge episodes. They're kind of short episodes on a pretty particular topic, so I think I'm gonna forego the lengthy bio. Try to abbreviate it. First and foremost, I am a Christian. That is number one in my life, serving God, following Jesus. Combat veteran, served in the United States Marine Corps and the Army. Also law enforcement veteran, private contractor, state rifle and pistol champion. Pretty succinct. You want to support? Go to Patreon. Should be a link in the show notes. Boom. Let's get into the day's cartridge. Let's talk about a cartridge. What cartridge? The 17 Remington. Why? Because it's cool and I feel like it. And also, I've been doing quite a bit of larger cartridges lately, mostly because patrons were interested in them, like the 9.3x62 and the 375 H&H and the 35 Whelen. But what about the little guys? What about the teeny tiny cartridges? Because as Alan Jackson told us, it's alright to be little bitty. I'm going to be quoting from Cartridges of the World, a gift from a patron, and Wikipedia, and some obviously background knowledge that I have about varmint hunting and things like that. But I like to give credit where credit is due. This cartridge, when I started researching it, I'm familiar with the 17 Remington. I thought it was a Wildcat. Apparently, not a Wildcat, a mainstream cartridge. Like, you can buy ammo for it. Just in a nutshell, the 17 Remington is a .223 necked down to a 17 caliber. This is from Cartridges of the World. The 17 Remington was introduced in 1971 as a new caliber for Remington 700 series bolt-action rifles. It is the smallest caliber centerfire rifle cartridge offered on a commercial basis to date. The case is based on a .223 neck down to 17 caliber with the shoulder moved back to .087 inches. I'm not going to read more of the technical aspects of this. What is this cartridge good for? For varmint hunting, right? That's what it is designed for. It is a varmint cartridge. And varmint hunting is a lot of fun. There was a time when I lived out west and I had easy access to these giant ranches where they would issue you damage stamps and you could just go around and slay varmints, prairie dogs. And I don't apologize for that. You see, I love to kill stuff and eat it for meat. I didn't eat these. They carry the bubonic plague, which is disgusting, and a bunch of other nasty critters. They are rodents, and they are native to that area. But you know what they're not native to? Farm fields. Farm fields that grow stuff that we use. And just to go off on a side tangent, this always struck me as odd about vegetarians. Because they don't eat meat, but they eat plants grown on farms. Well, in order for there to be a farm field there, somebody had to go destroy the natural habitat and has to continually kill the animals that would go on it otherwise, because those animals would eat that crop. Go talk to a farmer and ask him what a herd of deer will do to baby sprouts sprouting up out of the ground, or elk, or something like it, or prairie dogs. So I don't really get the vegetarian argument where they're not willing to eat animals because they eat things that require the decimation of animals to be grown. Anyway, back to the 17 Remington. What a good cartridge this would be for that. For varmints, for prairie dogs, for what I would call medium small game. It would be a great fox round. It would be a great raccoon round. It would be a great badger round. Things in that category it would be great for. Oftentimes in environments where you'll find animals like that, you'll also find quite a few coyotes and badgers and things like that. It would be a great cartridge for that. And since if you reload It's not a hard cartridge to make, I wouldn't think, because it's a neck down 223, and 223 is some of the most common brass you're going to find. Also saw in doing some research, I did some quick research, and the first load I pulled up, I was like, that's crazy fast. We'll get to how fast in a minute. But it was common powders. So you're talking common primers, common powders, common propellants. It didn't have any real crazy propellants that I saw. You could load it with very common powders. So the only real difference is the 17 caliber bullets, and they're not crazy common like 22 or 30 caliber, but they're not hen's teeth. They're not super uncommon, right? So it would be a pretty cool cartridge for that. So if you just wanted something different with crazy high velocities, wanted to save pelts, you were hunting for pelts, people still do that, on a crazy high velocity small round, great for that. I said I get into numbers and speed. Let's talk about speed. Let's look at a real common, and we're going to compare apples to apples, hopefully like a full-length barrel, but we're talking a 55 grain full metal jacket. That's a real common loading for 5.56 at 3250. That's a high velocity cartridge, right? 223 is kind of known for being a high velocity cartridge at 32 and some change. The 17 Remington, with what I would consider its base, weight of 25 grains, is going at 4,000 feet a second. I say again, 4,000 feet a second. Factory load. And it lists a 20 grain factory load at 4250. Compared to 32 and some change, 4250. That's crazy fast. And again, it's a lighter bullet. You're talking 25 grains versus 55 grains and even commonly heavier bullets in the 223. But this is not meant to be a weapon of war cartridge or a deer hunting cartridge. This is a varmint cartridge. We're talking about some crazy high velocities, which is going to give you very flat trajectories out to a point. You're talking about a cartridge to shoot prairie dogs with at 50 yards to 350 yards. Often talk about point blank range for deer hunting, where let's call the vitals a 6-inch circle just for argument's sake. You can zero it so it's a 0 to 50 yards. It's an inch or two high depending on your cartridge at 100, and it falls back down again at a common distance of 200, 225, 250. Because the vital area is pretty large, you're talking about even more point-blank range. And point-blank range, if you don't know, is just the kind of distance you can aim at the center of the target and hit somewhere in an acceptable area. Well, the kill zone on a prairie dog could be an inch. You're talking an inch to shoot a prairie dog in the head. A lot of times is what you see poking up over prairie grass or an alfalfa field. Talking about an inch. A different ball game when you're talking about varmint hunting, especially prairie dogs. This would be an amazing cartridge for that. Also, if you happen to see a coyote or a weasel or a badger, because there's a bunch of dead prairie dogs around, it would do fine on that too. Talking about if you were looking at a fox hunting cartridge for pelts, I got to imagine it would be a fantastic one for that. Going back to the data, I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. It lists a 20 grain load at 4436. That's just, it's screaming fast. 20 grains at 4436. Now, I don't know what that would do to a prairie dog, but I know what it used to do to them when I would shoot them with 36 grain varmint grenades. And I forget if I loaded them over Varget or Benchmark. But it just annihilated these prairie dogs. Super quick, super humane kill, but the carnage was immense. I can only imagine what a 17 caliber 20 grain bullet at 4,400 feet a second would do to a rodent. Again, I always want a quick kill, even if I'm eradicating them for environment improvement to help out farmers. I still want the animal to have a quick kill. I don't want to see anything suffer. I have to imagine that it would be horrific on those varmints. Also, I looked it up at Midway USA. No affiliation with me. I don't have any sponsors here except for the patrons that really support the podcast. I thought maybe I'd find a load for it since it's a factory option. There are quite a few loads for it. There are several loads, which surprises me. It's more popular than I thought. So you can get factory ammo for it. Now, if I was going to shoot a ton of prairie dogs, it wouldn't be my first choice because it would be expensive. If I was reloading, really not that much more expensive than anything else, at least as far as center fire ammo goes. So you got some factory options there. Again, if you were looking to have a factory option for pelt hunting, foxes, or something like that, it would be a fantastic cartridge for that too. I think that would be a sweet spot for it. If I was just doing a dedicated coyote hunting, I'd probably step up into something bigger, to be honest, but it certainly would do the job. I guess I'd like to get a little off topic again and say that old saying, "Go west, young man." I talked about the last great safari in an entire episode. A lot of people have dreams of like going out elk hunting, and I love elk hunting out west. I really do. I thoroughly enjoy it, but it's quite expensive. Talk about a lot of fun. You can go out west and shoot prairie dogs. I remember some of these ranches where I was issued damage stamps literally look like waves of these rodents. And the limiting factor on how many you could shoot was your marksmanship ability and how fast you could load mags. You'd literally have like a shooter and somebody jamming mags for you, and you'd switch off. I can't even put a number on it. So if you're looking to have a really good time and go out and help out some farmers or help out an environment, you might consider going out west and doing that. If you're looking for a more economic, more attainable to the common man western adventure, you might consider like a prairie dog coyote hunting extravaganza. Fly into Vegas, go fly into Boise. You could fly into Boise and be in good prairie dog, they call them whistle pigs out there, hunting territory in 10 minutes, 15 minutes drive from the airport. At least last time I hunted prairie dogs, they're whistle pigs. Perhaps that whole Treasure Valley is expanding, but you get the idea. It's very close and attainable. And if you contact some of these ranches out there, these big operations, look up like alfalfa ranches and stuff that can be tens of thousands of acres. They literally issue a damage stamp, which means you don't even need a hunting license, I don't believe. Double check that and make sure. But if you're on their land with a damage stamp, I think that suffices. And they're free. They'll issue them to you because they want you to shoot these things. So anyway, just something to consider. Semi-related to the 17 Remington. What a cool round. Crazy fast. Easy to manufacture yourself with common components, and a great varmint round. Anyway, with that, I want to thank you for listening to this Better Know a Cartridge episode and listening in general. If you listen on YouTube, I know these cartridge talks are fairly popular on YouTube. I'm primarily a podcaster, so if you like this content, consider checking it out on Spotify or iTunes. It's free. Anyway, with that, hopefully you'll like, subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll get into the tactical verse of the day. With today's topic, this verse came to mind. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, and the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth, and on all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hands. With that, men, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.